This is MATD 1534, and we start today with Unit 10, the circles. We're just going to have like an introduction now, just to see what is going on with the circle, etc., etc. Now, the circle is interesting that it is not a function, but why I'm saying it's interesting is that here we have the center that is moving in a horizontal and in a vertical position, and then the brackets will give us then the center. So in a for instance, now in the parabola we only had the x minus p, and in the absolute value we also just had the x minus p, but here we have two brackets. We have for instance here the x minus h squared and the y minus k squared. It doesn't matter if it's now x minus a, y minus b. That makes no difference whatsoever. We can use these symbols and choose them as we please. So here we used h and k. So therefore, as you remember from the absolute values and from our parabola, we said if you put those brackets equal to 0, you will find it was now the turning point or the salient point. And here in the circle, you will then find the center of the circle. So if I put x minus h equal to 0, I will find that x is h. If I put my y minus k equal to 0, I will find that y is k. So therefore, that is how we will determine our center. Now, if I can just look here quickly, if you, and also in trigonometry, if you've done trigonometry, you would remember that those Pythagoras little sums. So what I'm trying to show you here is that this is just again Pythagoras. There's the 90. So if you look, the distance from the center to here will be that x minus h. So that distance there will be x minus h. Because from here to here will be the x, and from here to here will be the h. I mean, the x is all the way to here, the h is all the way there. So from here to here will be x, from here to here will be h. Therefore, the difference there will be x minus h. And the same here, the height, let me do this, the height from here all the way up to there, that height will be the y. And the height all the way here to the center, that will be k. So therefore, the difference there will be h minus k. So it's actually very logical to understand where they get those x minus h and that y minus k from. And now if you can remember the formula for the analytical geometry, where we call it the distance formula. And that is exactly what this now is. It's now the distance there for r. Y minus k squared, x minus a squared is then must give me then the distance squared. Remember that distance formula always had a square root on, eh? So if we can just call this A and call this now M or C for center, let's say C for center. If you remember from analytical geometry, we would have said that the length there, the distance formula, should be the square root of that y minus k squared and plus that x minus h squared, if you can remember that from analytical geometry. Okay, so if we square both sides and we understand that AC is now our radius, then we find the formula here at the top. So honestly, a lot of logic here, and if we make 100% sure we understand it, it's really not so difficult. Okay, so if we look now here at some of our examples now. So in other words, if we look at number A here, 10.2a in your books, né? If we just consider this one now here. Okay, so the center will be when I put each bracket equal to 0. So therefore, I will find that my x will be 3, because if I put x minus 3 equal to 0, I'm going to find the 3 here. And if I put the y plus 4 equal to 0, I'm going to find the minus 4 here. And therefore, the center there will be 3 minus 4. So I just want to make it a little bit larger here. All right, so um, the radius will be, as we just said now in the above example when we talked about that. So our radius will then be, remember this is the radius squared. It's the radius squared, so the radius will be 6. Okay, so the radius there in this will then be 6 over here. Now, what I indicated here is very important, and we always want you to do it. So this is now like an NB note that you must make, please. So this is NB. Okay. And that is these 4 points that you must indicate. So there's always 5 things that you must indicate. The center, and then the 4 points like a cross. Okay, so we know now our center is 3 minus 4. Okay. Now, and the radius is 6. Okay. So from this 3, if I go 6, I must get to 9. And remember, the minus 4 will remain minus 4 because I'm horizontal here. Minus 4 there, minus 4 there, minus 4 there. Okay, so again, if I start at the center, 3 minus 4, and my radius is 6, then clearly, if I start at 3 and I go my 6 units, I must get to 9. So the coordinates there will be 9, negative 4. If I start at 3 and I go back 6, I should get to negative 3. So this will be negative 3, 4. Now, if I go vertical, remember then the y coordinate is going to change. So if I start here at negative 4 and I go 6 up, I must get to 2. Now the 3 will remain 3. It will remain 3 because I'm vertical. It's like the floor numbers in a hotel or a flat or something. If you go vertical, your floor numbers change, but your room numbers is actually the same. You know, your one room from the lift or from the steps or whatever, staircase or whatever, but your floor numbers change. So if I'm at negative 4 and I go up 6, I must get to 2. If I am negative 4 and I go down 6, I must get to negative 10. So we always indicate the center and the cross. So 5 things that we must always indicate. The center and those 4 points. Let me just correct that a little bit better. So it's just to say you must please indicate those 5 things. Okay, so in other words, the center and the 4 points of the cross, and then you can draw your circle through that. So do it first, and then you draw your circle. That gives you then coordinates on the circumference of the circle, and you can make a better drawing there. Other things that we must just also consider here that could be asked to us, that they could ask, and they do. Remember, this circle is crossing the x-intercept, so they can maybe ask us to work out the x-intercepts. It's also crossing the y-axis here, so they might also ask us to work out the y-intercepts. But that will read, we will read our questions properly, and we will see if they want it from us or not. So we don't do it in the circle. Um, we as a given, we do it only if they ask it. What we want in the circle are those 5 indication points. That's what you must do. If it just says draw the circle, etc., etc., you're just going to do those 5 points. And then if they ask you also to do the um, x-intercepts, you will calculate them by making y 0, and you will get a trinomial because there will be 2 places, and the same for the y-intercept. You will make x 0, and you will find the 2y intercepts because the circle is crossing the y-axis twice there. If you get to the second example here, you will see here there will be no x-intercepts, but there will be two y-intercepts. So we will just make x 0 and find our two y's, but it's not going to help us making y 0. There's not going to be any x-intercepts here. I'm going to skip this example B. You can go look at that. I just want to let us go to something else that is very important for this morning. Okay, uh, here in C, it just means if we have something like x squared plus y squared is 10, that's Pythagoras. No? That's just Pythagoras. Now that just means that the center of the circle is 0, 0. Nothing else changes there. I actually want to get to this 10.3 now because this is what you can expect now. So you're going to have the circle in this form. Okay. And then we will need to complete the square once again so that we can write the circle in the bracket squared form like here so that we can find the center. If you look at that equation over there, that's not going to help you to find the center. All right, you will need to do completion of the square. Now, I've explained it here on the right-hand side in the book, and we have done completion of the square, so it should not be a problem. But what I'm going to do now is just to show you, I do it a little bit shorter than this. I needed to put it like this in the book so that it just helps to explain here. But if I do it, I group, this is the first uh, important thing that you must do. So the group I still do, meaning get all your x together, get all your y's together, and get your constant to the other side. That is always your first step. Now you don't have to, you, I've indicated little gaps here because in the book it's explaining where that 1 and 64 is coming from. But you don't need to put in that step. So what you can do now after this step number 1 as a step number 2 is you can say, listen, I know now that's going to be a square, and I know now that is going to be a square, and I have my negative 61 here. Okay, and then you just go for your x. Remember, the square must now go away. The same symbol there, plus half that 2 there. Okay, go, and then the square of that one. So the square of this one, whatever you found here, you're going to square it, and you're going to add it on the other side. That's where this 1 is coming from. Okay. Then you come back, you go to the y, you say, man, this should just be y now. The very same symbol, if that's minus there, it should be minus here. Okay, good. And then half that 16 is going to give me the 8. And once again, now I'm going to square that 8. Whatever I found there, I'm going to square. And that is where the 64 is coming from. And I'm going to add it on that side. So plus the 64. Okay, and now we can just put makeup on again. Just make it now nice and simplify it. So that's x plus 1 squared plus y minus 8 squared. And if I add my right-hand side, I'm going to get 4. And please, please, please remember that this is the radius squared. Some people, when you ask them what is the radius, then unfortunately they will write 4. They forgot that it is actually r squared on the right-hand side. So my final answer will then be to say, okay, so therefore the center is negative 1, 8, and my radius is 2. That will be always like the first question. And then, as I say, Then we will wait and see what other questions do they ask us. Do they want the x-intercepts? Do they want the y-intercept? Whatever do they want now? But that will be asked then in the question. But our first approach, our initial approach, will always be to first find the center and the radius of the circle, because then we can draw it, etc., etc. Okay, so if we need to draw it now, we will then say, okay, we know now that we just saw that the center is -1,8 and the radius is 2, and then we will draw it. Okay, so here, the opposite now. In other words, now they've given us the circle and we must find the radius. So now we go backwards by writing first of all what is the center of this circle, which we can clearly see is -3 and 2. So we will first indicate that our center is -3 and 2. And now we know then we must have x plus 3 here, because the bracket equal to 0 must give me my -3. So we basically have minus 3. And then plus, and then if there's 2 there, it must be y minus 2 over here, because the brackets equal to 0 must give me my 2 back. And then the radius, I can clearly see the radius there is 2. All right, because from -3 to -1, or any other way you look at it, 0 to 2, etc., etc., and then we will have equal to 4. So it's x minus the center of x squared plus y minus the center of y squared will give us the radius, which is 2 squared. Okay, so these are the two main basic examples for the circle.